The interesting thing about Tracer, Lost in the Electrical Aisle says, Ghost is now dead with Tracer. I disagree. I think you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. But I'm also going to tell you why you might be right. Here's why you're wrong. Tracer only does... What's the frickin' name of the encoding? Hang on. What's the name of the modulation technique that Tracer uses? So Tracer uses FLRC modulation, it's believed. That lets them get high speed, low latency with decent range, but not like spectacular range. But here is why Ghost is appealing and I think deserves attention. Ghost uses LoRa for everything. And that means that it is, all else being equal, going to have 250 hertz. Thank you guys for correcting that. That means that all else being equal, Ghost is going to have better range than Tracer because LoRa is just so much more sensitive than the FLRC encoding or modulation used by Tracer. But when Ghost goes to 222 hertz race mode, it has to turn off telemetry because it runs out of bandwidth. So Tracer can do 250 hertz with telemetry. Oh, that's good. But here's the thing. Ghost can do that too. They're using the exact same chipset, it's believed. That they're using the exact same chipset. There is a firmware right now that ImmersionRC test pilots are testing because ImmersionRC went, you guys want FLRC at 250 hertz with latency? You like Tracer? Okay. And boom, just firmware update, and Ghost can do it too now. But here's the thing. So anything that Tracer does in terms of clever modulation techniques to balance out range versus latency, ImmersionRC can just do a firmware change and say, okay, you guys like that? Be my guest. But here's the thing. Why doesn't Tracer do LoRa in 2.4 gigahertz? Because FLRC encoding has great latency, has telemetry, all those good things, but it has significantly shorter range than LoRa. And I think the reason is that TBS doesn't want Tracer to compete with Crossfire. This is pure speculation. But because TBS could just, with a firmware update, boom, now Tracer can do LoRa. And you could get a 50 hertz, 50, 60, whatever kilometer range out of Tracer. Why didn't they do that? It's just a firmware update. And I think it's because they don't want to compete with their own. They want Crossfire to be for long distance pilots, and they want Tracer to be for high performance racing pilots, and they don't want those two things to compete. But Ghost does no such conflict of interest. ImmersionRC is happy to give you both an ultra long range LoRa at like 50. They have a long distance mode that's like 15 hertz and can go super sensitivity. So Ghost is not dead as far as with Tracer, in my opinion. Obviously, you will fly them, and obviously this is all theoretical. This is all on paper. Ultimately, you'll fly them and you'll decide which one you like the best. But I don't think Ghost is dead because TBS has an inherent conflict of interest. They cannot afford to let Tracer eat too much market share away from Crossfire. And that is, in my opinion, why they did not open up LoRa mode on Tracer, even though they absolutely could have with a simple firmware update. It would have been trivial. And Ghost is willing to do that. Ghost can do ultra long range, 10, 50, 60, whatever kilometers. It can do ultra low latency, and whatever Tracer does with FLRC encoding, Ghost can do that too. So, now, does that mean Ghost is better than Crossfire? Hang on. All you TBS fans, don't jump down my throat. I am a massive fan of Crossfire. Crossfire is such a mature ecosystem. The firmware is mature. It is bug-free. It is rock solid. It is reliable. It is so easy to live with. Crossfire is amazing. And Ghost is still working out launch day bugs. They just released a thing saying, as of this firmware, this bug with SRXL2 is finally fixed. Ghost protocol is still not in beta flight. It's in a nightly build. So, am I saying that? I'm saying just from a pure performance perspective, if you look at Tracer and go, Ghost is dead, I don't think you know what you're talking about. Tyler Harris says, can Ghost do all of that now, or will it need to be unlocked in a future update? It will be unlocked in so right now, Ghost only does low raw, which means that when Ghost goes to 222 hertz, the very fast, there's 160 hertz Ghost mode that has telemetry and low raw. But when it goes to the very fastest, lowest latency mode, it turns off telemetry. And that is a place where Tracer beats it. But the thing is that with a firmware update, Ghost can just unlock the same modulation method that Tracer is using and potentially give similar performance. Obviously, in the real world, the build and so forth of the unit affects the range, but now Archimedes has a good point. At some point, could TBS decide that they're going to let Tracer become their main product and open up LoRa? Absolutely. In the same way that I say, whatever Tracer does, ImmersionRC could do the exact same thing with Ghost because they have the exact same chipset. That is also true of Tracer. TBS could absolutely open up low-raw modes and compete with Ghost. They're using the same hardware, so it's just what they decide to do. But the fact that they haven't done it certainly is